Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this Kokopelli symbol. This represents fertility and the joy of music in native Indian cultures, I believe. You can do your research on that, and there's some interesting reading on it. Personally, I just actually like the design and thought it would be a nice, cool project to route out and cut out with a scroll saw afterwards. Now imagine it's 16 inches by 12 inches. You can get this image online, no problem. I've actually added a separate ring around the outer side and added some more lines here. And I've thrown in an extra line there. So don't be afraid to play with patterns and templates when you finally get them printed off. It's always nice to add your own little touch. As always for me, we've printed it out on standard printer paper, inkjet for me, and we stuck it down to our recycled pine. This would have been a desk in a previous life. Instead of it going away to waste disposal, should I say. We're going to give it another life and turn it into a nice wooden project. So we stuck it down with painter's tape. Now for me, I'll just pop in carbon paper, graphite paper underneath and literally draw around it. There's quite a lot on this one, so it took a good 10 minutes plus. Once you've done that, we've got our lovely image there ready to use, and you can use that template over and over again, and you're not wasting papers and ink printing it all off. So you can see from that we've got our image all nicely ready to route out. You can just about see it from there. It looks a bit complicated at this moment in time, but once we get going you'll soon see. Take 3 or 4 minutes to shade in the areas that you want to remove, because I can guarantee you'll go away, come back and start routing out these lines. Well, that's the end of your project. So either shade in the areas you want to remove or shade in the areas you want to keep. One or the others. Definitely recommend that, because you might just get caught out, like I say, if you come back a little later. Now for routing out purposes, I like to use these CNC bits. They're fantastic and ideal for getting into these tighter corners, plus doing all the lines with. However, they have a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm, and they will fit a Dremel no problem if you have the router attachment. 20 degrees, just that cut on the end there. But for a 1/4 inch router, which mine is, you need an adapter collet. This is a 6.35mm, basically just a metal tube with a couple of slits in, and you slide your CNC bit into the end there. That's now got a 1/4 inch shaft, 6.35mm, and that will fit your 1/4 inch router no problem. If you have an 1/2 inch router, you obviously want a bigger reducer collet. And we'll use this to do all our lines. We'll go inside there, removing all these shaded areas, remember, so you want to be up to the line. I never route out on the line personally, so go around all this. So there's a lot of routing to do at the beginning for us. Once we've done all that, we'll just pop on one of these end milling bits. These work fantastic for me. I've certainly got no issues with this, and it's going to be easy enough to clear out. So we'll get a decent size one, and that will simply pop into the same reducer collet up to that little barrier. Don't be concerned if you find them without the barrier. They're identical bits, just that some come with that plastic barrier on. And we'll pop that into the router, and we'll use that to remove all the shaded area. Once it's all nicely removed and a little general tidy up, we'll cut it out first on a scroll saw. You could leave it on that backet if you wanted to, and literally just draw a line up there. But I like to incorporate the scroll saw and a router, making a nice scrouter project. So we said it's about 3mm, which I've got a little gauge somewhere if I can find it. I made something like this. It's on 3 different levels, 5 levels I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels, 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. And you can put your router on there and set your bit to whatever one you want. That way, you know, if you go away and use a router on another project, you can come back and set it to the same bit. This is not my normal depth gauge, and you can purchase them on eBay or Amazon, no problem. Just got to rummage around here. This is the one I always use. So you just set your little bit into that 3mm. That's that one there, I know for a fact, because it's basically the same thickness as the CNC bit and end mill bit. So that's our depth. Like I say, we'll do the lines, remove all the shed area, and you can put paint in this, no problem. Sand it down afterwards, make it nice, and plenty of colour in this one today. I'm going to incorporate resin with this, so each section will be coloured in with different coloured resin mixed with acrylic paint. We'll talk about that towards the end of the project. We've got a long way to go yet. So first of all, we'll set our CNC bit into our adapter reducer collet. Remember, it goes into the silver end and the black end will go into your router. We'll set it to 3mm and we'll start routing this one out. Right, you can see from that we've gone all the way around with those CNC bits. This recycled pine does route out nice and easy, but obviously it's just cheap pine, so you get what you pay for, and when it's free wood you can't complain too much. So we've done all our CNC bits, gone around everything we wanted to do, so it's just a simple case of removing it from the collet. We'll get a lot more projects out of that. We're going to pop in one of these nice end milling bits. We can go for that one. It's not too much detail, and we know that bit's going to fit into all the sections that we need to remove. So we'll just pop it back into the adapter collet, pop that into the router. You notice there I've removed a couple of little sections. There's a little triangle one down there, and there's another little one up the top there. They're my little depth gauges, should I say. So we can get our router, pop that into the router, and we'll set it to the same depth as that one there. And basically, we'll start removing all the penciled out areas. We'll do that next. Right, you can see from that, that's all nicely cleared out now with those little end milling bits. The good thing about these, they route out the side section as well as the back section, should I say. So we've not touched this yet, and I don't know if you can really see, but that's really nice and smooth, and we've had no issues with that. It's routed out really nice today. So we will be doing a general tidy up on this, basically getting inside these with a Dremel flexi cable, something like this one here. Just find it quickly. One of these, they're ideal, and they're just an eBay special. It's a non-Dremel part, and it literally just attaches to the end of your Dremel. It's ideal for holding, and we'll use this to go inside, just give it a general tidy up like so. Pick an engraving bit with a nice flat bottom on it. You'll get these off eBay, packet of 30, really cheap, and they certainly do their purpose for tidying up with. So we will use this to clear all those little bits out, right to them corner sections. It's not a lot. Remember, the bit we're going to see is the top section. We are going to fill all this in with resin. So regards to the back section, it doesn't matter, but that's really nice and smooth today. Proper pleased with that one. Before we do that, the tidying up, we're just going to cut it out first on a scroll saw. Now I've tried to extend the framework on this. That's the original line, and I just freehand roughly went round like so. But it looks too wide now, so I want to go back to the original one. And sometimes you'll change things as you go along. So we're going to stick with our original line and basically cut it all out. You could leave it on that piece of wood if you wanted to. Just cut that section off and lower those back pieces if you wanted. And sometimes some projects just alter as you go along. As long as you've got a general idea what you're going to be doing. That's the main thing. Right. Don't know if you can hear that. I've got an airplane going over the top at the moment in time. We'll let him get on his merry way. So, scroll saw blades, 3 types basically. You get a pinned one like so. They have pins at both ends. You get a pinless blade, without the pins obviously. And you'll get a spiral blade. There is fancier ones of the pinless ones. Reverse tooth, I believe. And there's all fancy names and fancy prices. I prefer a spiral blade because it will cut in any direction, and they're ideal for bigger projects. Unfortunately, they are a pinless blade, as you can see, so I need these adapter clamps for mine. You could use any of these blades on this one because it's nothing complicated, just a case of cutting it out. However, if you're doing inner cuts, you've got a small section there, you can just about see that. You try going in there with a pin blade, those pins are going to be in the way. So if you wanted to cut that little section out, you'd have to go for a spiral blade or a pinless blade, just so it fits into those little tight areas. Spiral blades aren't for everybody, but it's all I use now. I'm quite happy with them. You'll definitely find you'll have a love or hate relationship. Peggers number 5 for me. So we'll pop that in a scroll saw, literally cut this all out, and then we'll come back, give it a general tidy up, and then we'll be on to the next section. Right, that's all cut out with our Peggers number 5 spiral blade. Now, I'm not the best scroller in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but it serves a purpose. It probably just takes me a little bit longer with a sander just to get it nice and better, but it does the job, and it's near enough what I want at this moment in time. We are going to go around with some sanding drums. Don't forget our engraving bit to tidy up. A good bit of old fashioned sandpaper. and then we'll even get a mouth sander on this one, give it all a nice tidying up, and we'll get those sides sorted, no problem. So we'll do that next. Right, that's enough sanding down and general tidying up for me. We've cleared it up the best we can, and that's definitely near enough for what I want for my little project today. At the end, we've got the sandpaper there just to round off those edges and all the way around, just to take the sharpness of the routed out areas, and that's plenty, near enough for what I want today. Now, in regards to staining, just before the resin goes in, I'm just going to go for boiled linseed oil. Those who have watched my previous videos, it is a favourite of mine. I'm just going to, simple case of covering the old piece with oil, all the side bits as well, and then we'll leave it for a day or two just to dry nicely, and then we'll spray this with some clear varnish. I'll explain about that when we come back after we've done the boiled linseed oil. I was going to do a dark stain on this, or you could just paint it all black, spray it all black and allow the colours, but there's going to be a lot of nice bright colours in this, so I just want to leave the wood a little lighter as well. So just a simple case of putting it on. You'll soon see how it darkens that wood down. Get those side walls done. Don't be concerned about getting the back section. It's not going to interfere with the resin, and you can see how dark that's gone on those side bits there, like so. So it's just enough to coat the wood and still give a nice effect once all the bright coloured resin goes in. Right, I'll finish this off, let it dry for a day or two, and then when we come back we shall hopefully be on to filling it in with some resin. Right, you can see from that linseed oil's all nicely dry now, and it's darkened it down enough for what we need, so I have no problem with that. Now remember, we are going to fill this all in with a resin, just resin mixed with cheap acrylic paints. Going to get nice and colourful. Now you can use paint just the same. If resin is not your thing, you could paint in between each of these ones, then obviously give it a nice sanding down, and then put your boiled linseed on afterwards, or just spray it with a nice clear varnish. Now with your resins, there's two ways of doing things. You can slightly overfill this, then sand it all flush, and put a nice spray over the top, or put a clear coat of resin over the old piece and let it run down the sides. Or like I'm going to do today, we're going to fill it with resin, but just leave it enough so we can still feel the routed out section. So we're nearly to the top of that piece here, but we'll still be able to feel it afterwards. Resin will shrink slightly as it cures, so bear that in mind. And the reason why we put the varnish on first, which we're going to do now, and I've got no preference, it might be yacht varnish one day, it could be gloss varnish, paint factory another day. There's the polyurethane varnish kicking around somewhere in this shed of mine. So it doesn't really matter what we use. Now the idea for this is, one, we want to spray it all, because hopefully the varnish will just help seal the side walls on this pine. So when we put our resin in, or your paint, it doesn't bleed into those side walls. If you imagine this wood, you can see those grains here. You imagine all those being straws, and we've cut into those straws now. So basically we've left all the ends open, and that paint or your resin could bleed into those side walls, and you just don't get a nice crispy feel. Now there's wood sealers you can get. You just brush it on, it looks like milk, and you let it dry, and that fills all those pores up on the wood. Or like me, I just basically spray a bit of varnish on, just to make sure we seal it all, and that way when the resin goes in, or paint if you wanted to, you're not going to get any bleeding into the wood. And the other thing is, with your resins, Once the resin's gone in, this project will be finished because we've already sprayed and varnished and made it all nice and shiny. I did do a couple of samples with the resin of putting the resin in first and then spraying the varnish on afterwards instead of putting a clear coat on. This was an old one I did. I basically just put a piece of tape over. That's a normal resin. That is the effect we want to go for, the nice shiny one. Now that side, I sprayed some varnish on that, and you can see how dull that's gone. That's the last thing we want to happen on this project. So spray varnish first to seal your wood and to give a nice shine to the wood. And then we can put our resin in and just leave it, and that will be the end of the project. I literally just done one this morning on another just waste resin, and you can see there it's not as bad, so it could have been a different spray. But if I can just get that in the right light there, hopefully that side has been sprayed with the varnish, and that's just your clear resin. These are just made in Pringle lids, just leftover resin. But you can see there how they've both gone with the spray on. So it's up to you if you want to spray. You take a chance. But personally myself, I'll get the varnish on first. So we'll spray all this 3 or 4 coats, make sure it's nicely sealed. I'll go out inside and do this. It's a bit breezy today, but we'll manage. And then when we come back, we can start filling this in with resin. Right, you can see from that, we've sprayed our varnish on. It's got a nice little shine on these raised sections. And hopefully we've sealed all those side walls at the same time. That's just enough for what we need. Now it's just going to be a simple case of filling it all in with resin. Plenty of colour, nice and bright and cheerful. For the resin today, I'm using Vista one. Like all resin, it's a 2-parter, and this is a 1-to-1 mix by volume. Basically, whatever you put in of A, the resin, excuse me, they're the wrong way around. Whatever you put in of A, the resin, you put the exactly same amount of B, the hardener. I tend to use these little cheap party cups, beakers. They're ideal because they've got little grooves on the side, and I just count up the grooves. I don't like to mix too much in one go. So there's A for the resin, and I've literally counted up 5 of those for the resin, and this one's for B, the hardener, and I've counted up 5 of those. So we'll fill these 2 with the A and B, and then just mix them together. Have a nice mask on, put your gloves on, plenty of ventilation. Once we've mixed it all together, we need to put some colour in. Now for me, I'm using acrylic paints, just cheap acrylic paints. And we've got plenty to go at, plenty of colours here. So we put a little dab of that in each one, mix it in, and just fill our little sections in. There are different colours. You can get dyes, inks, powders. I've got bagfuls there that I've never bothered with. Now they're probably ready for the bin, to be honest. And for mixing, I'll just get these cheap plastic party knife, forks and spoons. They're ideal because they've got a nice little lip at the bottom there. And once you've done your mixing, you can just scoop out and we can just feed it into each section like so. So that's it really. I'll mix these 2 A and B off camera, and when we come back, hopefully we can start filling this one in. Right, there's our resin all nicely mixed, and I've transferred some more into another container. You can do that to 2 or 3 of them. We'll mix a certain colour. Obviously we run out, we can add a bit more, mix a bit more. Pointless doing half a cup of red and you've got a 1/4 cup left over. So that's all nicely mixed now. So it's just a case of popping our acrylics. We're going to start off with blue. Now you don't need a lot, you can always add a little bit more afterwards. So you just start off with a general little dollop or 2 like so. And just give it a nice mix round. If it looks a bit transparent, you can always pop a bit on there. And if you can see the grain behind, I don't want that effect. I want it nice, thick, solid colours. So we can just simply just add a little bit more. Now this is quite a light blue on this. Unfortunately on the camera, you're not getting the correct colours, but we will see it in daylight. just you can see. I just film off my mobile phone, so I'm just relying actually on the light to give us what we want. And you can see that little scoop there, look, back of the spoon. And that's ideal for filling in these small spaces. Now, obviously the finished project will go that way. I'll spin it and rotate it as we suit to go around. Now I'm just gonna find yourself a cocktail stick as well, because you're just gonna help it feed along. We want it quite flush with the top of the wood, allowing just for that little bit of shrinkage. So it's just a case of filling it up like so, and if it's not dark enough, you can just add a little bit more. So this is effect, we'll have a bit in there, then I'll miss one, go on to the next one, and so on. You can see what we're going to go in for there. And then just get your little cocktail stick and just help feed it along, like so. Now I can see that's not dark enough for me, so I will add a little bit more colour with this, and then we'll just continue, and then we'll come back when it's all nicely filled in. Right, that's it all filled in now. Just about to see from there. Now we'll leave it good 24, 48 hours for it to set near enough what we want. Before that, basically just skim over each section as I've been doing this. That just helps release any of those little bubbles in there. So that's it. So we'll put this to one side, 48 hours. Put a nice cover over it, because any dust, flies or anything, they will find it. And then we'll come back a couple of days and we'll see how it's set. Right, that's it. This little project is a finish. Now it's literally been 24 hours later. Personally, I will leave this for another 2 or 3 days just to firm up and cure nice and solid. But you can see from that, everything's there for what we want. We've got lovely shine on there, as you can see from that. And we've had no issues. There's been no bleeding at all. Everything's nice and crispy. The only thing I would notice, if anything, is on the red one here. I'm just being very picky. In fact, I might struggle to be able to show you. Just see, you just see them little speckles. They were the air bubbles coming up. The resin was left a little bit too late. I was doing bits in between. I had a right struggle to pick projects like this on a quieter day. So the resin was quite thick as I laid it into the red, and I didn't go back and sort them bubbles out. But it just looks like dust speckles. You've got to really get it in the right light to see it. If you can compare it next to the orange ones, which is nice and clear, and then you get your red, and I believe that top section there, we've got some speckles in there as well. Really picky. You won't even see it when it's up like that. So that's it. This little project is finished. So it's a Kokopelli. I hope I've pronounced it proper. It's a deity to do with the Indians and stuff. And it's the deity doing fertility and joy of music and stuff like that. I'm not into all that kind of stuff. I just literally like the design and the pattern and plenty of colours. So it's routed out on recycled pine. It measures in at 16" by 12" across. We did all the lines with our CNC bits. We used end milling bits to remove all the clear out wood. And then we cut it out on a scroll saw using a Pegasus No. 5 spiral blade. General tied up with a Dremel and some engraving bits. A bit of sanding down. And then we laid it all in with Vista resin, using acrylic paint to colour with. And that's it. This little project is finished. We'll work out what kind of hook or fastener we want on the back. I normally route a slit in there. I've actually got some little hooks now and a little screw, and that will be plenty. And you can see from that we've got a lovely shine on there. We've got no spray needed. Remember, we've already sprayed the wood, and you might just see that nice shine on the wood as well. So that's it. This little project is finished. Just remember to get that resin in before it starts curing on you. Okay. Thank you very much for watching.